Half of Americans can't cover a $400 emergency, but the average household is spending $767 a month on a car payment. Something doesn't add up, and it's about to get worse. Today, we're breaking down 15 money stats that reveal what's really going on with the average American's finances in 2026. Some of these will shock you, a few might make you angry, and one stat near the end might change how you think about money forever. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly where you stand compared to most Americans. You'll have a clear financial reality scorecard, and you'll walk away with 3 moves you can make this week to get ahead of 90% of people. Quick note, I'm not a financial advisor. This isn't personalized advice. It's what the data shows and what the math says. Always do your own homework before making money moves. Now let's start with the number that sets the stage for everything else. Stat number 1. Total U.S. household debt hit $18.8 trillion at the end of 2025. That's trillion with a T. That's according to the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. It includes mortgages, credit cards, auto loans, student debt, all of it. The average American household now carries over $105,000 in total debt. Think about that. The median household income in the U.S. is about $83,700. So the average family owes more than they earn in an entire year. And here's what makes it worse. That debt total has increased by over $3 trillion since 2019 alone. That's roughly the entire GDP of Germany added to American household balance sheets in 6 years. Let's break that down to a number you can feel. If you owe $105,000 at a blended interest rate of about 6%, you're paying roughly $525 a month just in interest. That's before a single dollar touches the principal. That's $525 a month that doesn't buy you anything. It doesn't reduce what you owe. It doesn't build your net worth. It just keeps the debt from getting bigger. Stat number 2. Credit card debt crossed $1.27 trillion. That's the highest it's ever been. Ever. That's up from $770 billion during the pandemic. A 66% jump in under 5 years. And the average American carrying a balance? They owe about $6,500 to $6,800 on their cards alone. Here's what that looks like on a monthly basis. On a $65–80 balance, the minimum payment is about $132. Sounds manageable, right? But $121 of that goes straight to interest. Only $11 hits the actual balance. $11. You'd pay off your balance faster finding loose change in your couch. But here's the detail that really stings. The average credit card interest rate right now is over 22%. If you carry a $5,000 balance and only make minimum payments, you could pay over $8,000 in interest, and it could take you more than a decade to pay it off. Over a decade for $5,000. That's the trap most people don't see. Stat number 3. The median net worth for Americans in their 30s is $23,093. Let me say that again. Half of all 30-somethings in America have a total net worth, everything they own minus everything they owe, of less than $23,000. That's less than the average new car loan. So here's the uncomfortable truth. Half of people in their 30s are literally worth less than the car parked in their driveway. The average net worth for that age group looks better, $325,000. But that number is dragged up by a small number of high earners. The median tells you where the typical person actually sits, and that's one of the biggest mistakes people make with money stats. They compare themselves to the average instead of the median. The average is skewed by outliers. The median is the middle. It's where you actually are. That's your first scorecard rule. When you see a money stat, ask, is that the average or the median? It changes everything. Stat number 4. The median savings account balance in America is $8,000. That's across all transaction accounts: checking, savings, money market. And the recommended emergency fund? 3 to 6 months of expenses. The average household spends about $6,000 a month, so you'd need at least $18,000 just to cover 3 months. Most Americans have less than half of that. In fact, only 46% of adults have enough saved to cover 3 months of expenses. And 42% of Americans have less than $1,000 in savings. If you have $10,000 saved right now, you're ahead of most people your age. That's not a flex, it's how thin the margins really are. Stat number 5. The average new car payment is $767 per month. Almost $800 a month for a car. Used cars aren't much better at $537. And here's a stat that should make you pause. Nearly 1 in 5 new car loans now has a monthly payment over $1,000. Americans owe $1.67 trillion in auto loan debt. The average loan is $43,582 for a new vehicle, and the average loan term, almost 69 months. That's nearly 6 years of payments, but the payment is only part of the story. Full coverage car insurance averages $225 a month. Add that to your $767 payment, and you're at nearly $1,000 a month just to drive. And here's the part nobody talks about. According to Kelley Blue Book, a new car loses up to 60% of its value over 5 years. That $43,000 car, it could be worth about $17,000 by the time you finish paying it off. You paid $52,000 in payments for something now worth $17,000. That's a $35,000 gap, and that's before insurance and gas. And coming up in a few minutes, I'll show you what happens when you flip that $767 a month into an investment instead. The number might change your life. But first, stat number 6. 1 in 4 federal student loan borrowers is now delinquent. 25%. That's 3 times the pre-pandemic rate. Total student loan debt sits at $1.65 trillion. And when repayment resumed after the pandemic pause, a huge chunk of borrowers either couldn't afford to restart or didn't even know payments had resumed. The consequences are real. Missed payments tank your credit score. Tax refunds get seized. Wages can eventually get garnished. If you have student loans, here's your move. Check your repayment plan right now. Income-driven repayment plans can lower your monthly amount to something manageable. Don't ignore it. Ignoring it is the most expensive option. Stat number 7. The average American's personal savings rate is around 4 to 5%. That means for every dollar earned, about 5 cents goes to savings. The historical average going back to 1959 is almost 9%. We're saving at nearly half the rate our parents and grandparents did. And it shows. Because most Americans are one layoff, one medical bill, or one car breakdown away from a financial crisis. This is the stat that separates people who build wealth from people who stay stuck. If you can push your savings rate to 15 or 20%, you're playing a completely different game. Let me show you why. The median household earns $83,000 a year. At 5%, that's about $350 a month going to savings. At 15%, it's about $1,050 a month. The difference is $700 a month. If you invested that extra $700 at 10% annual returns, you'd have over $142,000 in 10 years. From one change, just bumping your rate. Most people think building wealth requires a huge salary. It doesn't. It requires a high savings rate on whatever salary you have. That's the real secret. Stat number 8. Gen X carries the highest average debt of any generation, over $149,000. They've also got the highest credit card balances at $9,600 on average. Meanwhile, Gen Z's debt is growing the fastest, up nearly 8% in a single year. Here's what's happening. Gen X is squeezed between expensive mortgages, kids in college, and aging parents who need care. Gen Z is just entering the car buying and home buying stage with sky-high prices and limited savings. The middle generations are getting crushed from both sides. No matter where you fall, the data says the same thing. Debt is accelerating, not slowing down. Stat number 9. The average 401k balance across all ages is about $146,400. Sounds decent, right? Now look at the median, $38,176. That's the reality gap. A few super savers with huge balances pull the average way up. The typical worker, they have about $38,000 saved for retirement. If you're 30 with a 401k balance of $40,000 or more, you're above the median. If you're 50 with less than $100,000, you've got catching up to do. And here's what hurts. 88% of employers offer a 401k match. That's free money. But millions of workers don't contribute enough to claim the full match. Let me give you an example. Say you earn $60,000 a year and your employer matches 100% of the first 3% plus 50% of the next 2%. If you contribute 5%, that's $3,000 from you and $2,400 from your employer. That's $5,400 a year going into your retirement. If you invest that for 30 years at 10%, it grows to over $1 million. $1 million from 5% of a $60,000 salary. That's the power of the match plus compound growth. Here's the good news. Starting in 2026, if you're between 60 and 63, you can now contribute up to $35,750 per year into your 401k. That's thanks to the Secure 2.0 Super Catch-up provision. And if you're younger, you've got the greatest wealth building tool ever invented on your side: time. Stat number 10. 80% of Gen Z report feeling left behind financially. And it's not just a feeling, the data backs it up. Gen Z's median net worth in their 20s is only $6,600. Their average credit card balance is growing, and a new trend called doom spending is making it worse. Doom spending is when you spend money to cope with anxiety about the economy or the future. Buy something now because tomorrow feels uncertain. Over a quarter of Americans admit to it, but for Gen Z, that number jumps to 41%. It's retail therapy dressed up as survival. And it's eroding the exact savings that would actually make the future feel less scary. Here's the fix. If you catch yourself stress shopping, delete your saved payment info from your browser. Add friction between the impulse and the purchase. That one move can save you hundreds a month. And coming up, I'll show you the one stat that explains the entire K-shaped economy in a single number. Don't skip it. Stat number 11. The average American net worth is $1,063,700. The median, $192,900. That gap between average and median tells you everything about inequality in America right now. The top 10% of earners have an average account balance of $353,000 in savings alone. The bottom quarter, $3,500. This is the K-shaped economy. Some households are soaring, some are sinking. And the letter K represents exactly what the data shows. Two paths going in opposite directions from the same starting point. If you're watching this video, you've already made a choice. You're choosing to learn. And that puts you on the upward path. Stat number 12. The average monthly household expense is $6,081. $6,000 a month just to keep the lights on, eat food, and get to work. That's nearly $73,000 a year. Remember, the median household income is $83,730. After taxes, you're looking at maybe $65,000 to $70,000 take-home. That leaves almost nothing. This is why most Americans feel like they're running on a treadmill. The math barely works even before you factor in debt payments, savings, or investing. The only way out is to widen the gap. Either earn more, spend less, or both. And the fastest lever to pull? Your three biggest expenses: housing, transportation, and food. Those three alone eat up over 70% of most budgets. Stat number 13. Mortgage rates are hovering between 6.3 and 6.4%. The average mortgage balance is $258,214. The average first-time homebuyer is now 40 years old. 40. The age when people are finally able to buy their first home has climbed from 33 in the early 2000s to 40 today. For millennials, the American dream of homeownership got pushed back by almost a decade. Housing prices are at all-time highs. The median existing home price sits around $400,000. And here's the K-shaped split again. Homeowners who locked in pandemic-era rates of 3% or less are sitting on massive equity gains. Everyone else is either priced out or paying top dollar for both the house and the interest. Let me show you the real cost of that rate difference. A $320,000 mortgage at 3% costs about $1,350 a month. That same mortgage at 6.4%, about $2,000 a month. That's a $650 monthly difference. Over 30 years, the person with the higher rate pays $235,000 more. for the exact same house. That's why timing the market matters less than timing your interest rate. And that's why building a strong credit score before you buy is one of the best investments you can make. If you're renting and saving for a down payment, that's not failure. That's strategy. Build your emergency fund first, then build your down payment. Don't buy a house and become house poor. Stat number 14. 21% of Americans don't save any of their annual income. 0. And 69% save less than 10%. Here's where it connects. If you save and invest just $767 a month, the exact same amount as the average new car payment, into an index fund earning an average return of 10% per year, you'd have over $580,000 in 20 years. That's the cost of a car payment measured in opportunity. It's not just $767, it's the $500,000 that money could have become. And if you stretch that out to 30 years instead of 20, that same $767 a month becomes over $1.7 million. $1.7 million from a car payment. That's the difference between retiring comfortable and retiring broke. Now, I'm not saying don't ever buy a car. I'm saying know the real price and make that decision with your eyes open. Stat number 15. Only 23% of Americans are completely debt-free. Less than 1 in 4. That includes all debt. Mortgages, car loans, student loans, credit cards, everything. These 23% aren't all rich. Many of them simply made different choices earlier. They drove used cars. They lived below their means. They said no to lifestyle inflation. And year by year, payment by payment, they climbed out. So where do you land on the scorecard? Let's do a quick recap. If your total debt is below $105,000, you're below average. That's good. If your savings is above $8,000, you're above the median. If your net worth is above $192,000, you're in the top half. If your savings rate is above 15%, you're ahead of 95% of Americans. And if you're completely debt-free, you're in an elite 23%. No matter where you scored, here are 3 moves you can make this week. Move 1. Check your savings rate. Open your bank app right now. Look at your income last month. Look at what you saved. Divide savings by income. That's your rate. If it's below 10%, don't panic. Start with 1%. Then bump it next month. Most people overestimate what they can do in a week and underestimate what they can do in a year. Find one expense to cut this week and redirect that money into a high-yield savings account. 1 subscription, 1 takeout meal, 1 impulse buy you skip. That's your first savings raise. Move 2. Pull your credit report for free at annualcreditreport.com. This costs nothing and takes 10 minutes. Know your balances, know your interest rates, write them down. If you're carrying credit card debt above 20% interest, that's the fire you put out first. No investment in the world consistently beats 22% guaranteed. Paying off that card is the best return you'll ever get. Move 3. Automate 1 investment. Even $50 a month into a low-cost index fund starts the compounding clock. Set it and forget it. Make it automatic so you never have to think about it. Here's why automation matters. When saving is a decision you make every month, you'll skip it. When it's automatic, it happens whether you feel like it or not. The money disappears before you can spend it. The best time to start was 10 years ago. The second best time is today. Here's the thing most people miss. You don't need to fix all 15 stats at once. You need to fix 1, then the next, then the next. That's the system. Small moves, repeated. Money made simple. If this was useful, you'll want to see the $25,000 tip rule that nobody talks about. It could change how you think about your next paycheck. I'll link it right here.